This week's Parsha, Parsha of Mishpatim, which is the civil laws of the Torah, the laws that the Torah speaks about, the basic civil contract with all the practical, mundane laws of the Torah. Ve'ela Mishpatim, the word Mishpatim, the civil laws. So there is the Zohar famously, this week's Parsha, starts off speaking about, and most of the Parshas speaks about the idea of reincarnation, the secret, the raza, the secret of reincarnation of souls that are transmigrating and reincarnating into different lives, the different incarnations throughout different lives, the different incarnations throughout within a person's life, within life itself. And the Zohar starts off to explain that in the idea of civil law is normal mundane law between man and man, just ethical basic law. The Zohar tries to give us an understanding that despite the fact that we see and we perceive civil law or the mundane law between man and man as something that is not necessarily the most meaningful or deepest experience that we have in life, it's not a spiritual experience, it seems to be much more mundane, we should just know that there's a secret going on. There's something that's deeper. There's incarnations through different life forces that are passing through and flowing through life. The Zohar gives a description about the reincarnation and this famous mashal, a famous metaphor for the Baal Shem Tov that's also found in Madsha Gadol, about a person having different challenges throughout life, different monetary challenges throughout life, and recognizing that these are all part of the rectifications, the tikkunim of a past life. And the way the Zohar introduces this entire story of the souls and the reincarnation is with a very cryptic story, a tale. So we'll try to decipher a little bit the story to understand. The basic understanding before we get into the story is that in every interaction, in every interpersonal interaction, certainly monetary issues, there's always the giver and the receiver, which means I am participating with another person in a transaction. So there's the way I enter into this state with a certain level of my consciousness and mindfulness and intention, kavana. And then there's what we receive from life or from the other person. Now, most times we think that the intention and the kavana is important from my end, what I put into this world or what I'm putting into this relationship. But what I receive from the other person or from what I receive from the world in itself, that's something that's not dependent on me. I'm just a recipient of it. But the truth is that every single experience in our life, we're both the recipient of it and the creator. We're both receiving from experiences of life or from other people or from life itself. But nothing is just merely received, but it's always recreated in our own mind. And therefore, on a deeper level, we're not just the recipients of life, we're always creating. Whatever we receive, we have a certain narrative, a certain way of perceiving it, and through that we create it in our own image. So it's important to create life. And this is the way the Zohar starts off the entire episode and the entire explanation of this idea of reincarnation. That there was once two great sages of the Zohar, Chi of Rabbi Yossi, Arach HaLayla Migdal Tzor. Chi and Rabbi Yossi once awoke in the middle of the night, one night, a singular night, in a place called Migdal Tzor. It's Archotam Chadav Dabeda. And they were both going on this path, and they met each other. Amar Rabbi Yossi, so Rabbi Yossi tells Rabbi Chia, Kama Chadina the Chamina on the Shechina. How joyous I am that I'm seeing the face of the Shechina. Which means when he meets his friend, when he meets his comrade, he tells Rabbi Chia, basically tells Rabbi Chia that when I see your face, it's like seeing the face of the Shechina. Which means that he's encountering this person, his friend, and he's seeing him not just as a person, we'll see soon what this means, but he's seeing him as encountering the divine, encountering the presence of the Shekhinah in this world, which is a deep way of encounter. The Baal Shem Tov says, the Baal Shem Tov teaches that everything has oilmas, neshamas, and lakus. Every single experience that we have in this world has worlds, which means when we encounter someone, we can see the worlds and the different, the world that we're seeing within the other person, just not encountering them in a specific dimension. We can see a person as neshamas from Malachim, which is the message that we're receiving, and then we can receive them as we're receiving the Shekhinah, the presence of the Shekhinah, the presence of Hashem's light, Hashem's presence in this world. So when he sees his friend, he says, how happy I am that I'm now encountering you and I'm seeing the face of the Shekhinah. The Hashta b'chol archa, because the whole path that I've been traveling up until this point, and the whole orech, and the whole way that I've been traveling. So he's traveling in the night, which is clearly a metaphor of, because the Zohar is talking on many different levels of metaphor, that he's traveling at night, and the night represents a place of lack of clarity, of lack of openness, and lack of expansiveness, lack of seeing the face of the Shekhinah in this world, seeing the presence of Hashem in this world. He's going in a place of darkness, and he's going on this path. And he says that so long as I've been traveling on this path, it started b'chada sabataya. There was an old man, an old Arabic man that was traveling with me and was paining me, caused me a lot of tsar, a lot of anguish. Because he kept on asking me different questions. And these were questions that were not answerable questions, apparently. Sort of like paradoxical parables. And he said, for example, Manu de Nochash de Barachal, what is a snake that floats in the air? And he gives him a few different stories, a few different parables or paradoxes that this Taya, this older man, kept on asking him. And he said it caused him a lot of pain. And then one of the things that he asked him is, Mao olumte shapirta velesla Aiden. What is the maiden, the beautiful maiden, that does not have eyes? And the body of this maiden is hidden and revealed. What is this? It's dressed with garments that are not hers. And he tells his friend, basically tells him, that the entire path, the entire time that I was walking with this man, I was anguished. I was troubled. I felt pain. I was in sorrow. And now I am restful. I came to a place of restfulness. Because now we can talk words of Torah. Because now we can talk words of Eraisa. I can now talk the words of Torah. Torah is the or. Eraisa comes from the word or, the words of light. So he asks him, so he says that this Taya, this older man that was walking with, this older person, did he know anything? He says, I know that his words were empty. Because if he knew something, he would have opened his mouth with the words of Torah, with words of light, and not, and he wouldn't speak to me words of emptiness, words of less mamasha, words that are empty. Finally, they call over this old man, and the old man explains. First of all, immediately tells him also a riddle. He says, "Hash the trey tlas." Before there were two, now there are three. The tlas now the three become one. Now the Rashi said, "Did I not tell you that everything he says is empty words?" And at the end, he tells him, everything that I heard from you was either silly words or empty words, words of no substance. And so the older man says, Omani, what are these words? He says, this is the Alumta Shapirta, this is the maiden with no eyes. So there's a lot of mystery in this story, but let's try to unpack at least one idea, which is like this. Talks about Alumta Shapirta, talks about a maiden with no eyes, a beautiful maiden with no eyes. So the Zohar, this is a mashal, this idea of a maiden with no eyes is a metaphor, is a mashal for the presence of the Shekhinah in this world. That the Shekhinah, there is the Shekhinah the way it's in a fallen state, the way the Shekhinah, the presence of the divine presence in this world is in a state of falling, the way of Shechita Begalus, the way the Shekhinah is in a state of exile. And then there's the Sukkah's Davar Nefeles. There's the way the Sukkah, the Shekhinah's presence is in a state of falling. And then there's Rachmi Yakum Lanu Sukkah's Davar Nefeles. There's a way that the Shekhinah rises up, which means like this. The Shekhinah's presence in this world is sort of the spiritual temperature, the spiritual atmosphere of this world. In a very superficial way, or a way that we observe the world not from a deep place, the world appears, the presence of the Shekhinah's presence seems to be concealed. It seems to be that there are no eyes to the Shekhinah, which means that when we learn Torah, when we're connected with something that's spiritual in its essence, a spiritual act, we're learning Torah, or we're davening, we're praying, and we're doing a mitzvah, we're doing something that's spiritual and connected to the divine in a very clear and overt way, so that we say we see the presence of the Shekhinah in this action. If we're awake and we're alive and we're doing it with an intention, we experience it that way. However, sometimes we experience the mundane world. And the way the Zohar is going to describe, or the way the Torah describes even Mishpatim, is basic civic laws, monetary dealings, civic laws, which seems to be mundane. In the world of the mundane, it seems that, or in the Orcha B'Layla, or in the walkings in the paths of the night, which means when it's not clear and it's not revealed, it seems like the Shekhinah, there's no eyes to the Shekhinah. Well, what's our avodah? What's our spiritual work that has to be done in this world? Our avodah, our spiritual work in this world, is that we have to create eyes to the Shekhinah Kaviyachal. We have to be the eyes of the Shekhinah. So this is, for example, that the Ari writes that on Friday night, after the full work week, after 6 days of work, that was 6 days of the week we work, on Leil Shabbos, on the night of Shabbos, you fill up a cup of wine. A kois is, the numeric value of a kois is 86, which is Shem Elikim, which is din, which is judgment, which is concealment. You fill it up with wine, which is bina, which is also the idea of red wine, the idea of judgment. And then when we look into the cup on Friday night, we're saying that we are becoming the eyes of the place that is concealed. Instead of seeing the place of concealment, we're opening our eyes and we're able to see within the concealment, we're able to see the light. And when we're able to see the light within the concealment, within the mundane, within the trivial, within the mundane, we're actually giving eyes to the Shekhinah. What this deeply means is, what the Zohar is saying is that even though when we look at the world of Mishpatim, the world of judgment, and the world of the superficiality of this mundane activities, it seems to be that this is a world devoid of divine presence in this world. It seems that the interactions are looked at the Shapir to the less Be'ena. It seems to be that there's the eyes of the maiden, of the beautiful maiden that has no eyes, which means it's not being revealed to us. There's a sense of concealment. But if we recognize the idea of Gilgulim, what is the idea of Gilgulim? What is the idea of reincarnation? Which is that there are multiple layers to every single story. When we see a certain particular narrative, a particular story that's unfolding in front of our eyes, we can perceive it the way it is immediately perceived. And I'm doing this physical transaction. I'm doing a financial transaction with another person, and the other person is not being too honest with me. That's even in the worst case scenario, the person's not even being honest with me. So I see it as a lack of Shekhinah, a lack of divine presence within this world, and I see it as something that's hidden. But if I choose, this is my choice. So even though it's being presented to me in a certain way, which is, this is what the Sabbatai, this is what this old man is teaching the sage. He's telling him that even though I'm presenting Miladirikon, I'm presenting apparently words that are empty, that seems the less mamamasha, it seems that are shtus, things that seems to be silly, and things that don't have of substance, you can choose to receive it in a way that actually you're experiencing as the presence of the Shekhinah in your life. So every single thing, because on the deeper level, this is what is true, because every single interaction that we're having in this world, every single mundane interaction is a reflection of multiple universes, multiple worlds that are happening, multiple incarnations. This is an effect from our past action or our past life's action, and everything is being rectified and reaching its tikkunim, is reaching its perfection, and reaching its elevation through the process that we're going through in this world. And every single experience that we're having in this world is intentional and it's meaningful, even though it doesn't seem meaningful to us, and it seems trivial, and it seems empty, and it seems like it's just a mishpat, it's just a law, it's a practical civil law. once we recognize that there are worlds within worlds and incarnations within incarnations, it allows us to be open to the experience and then to see within the things that seem empty, to see purpose. Which just means very simply, every single encounter that we have with every single person and every single situation that we're encountering and every single situation that we're in, it's our opportunity to either experience this just as something that's empty and silly and has no value, and therefore it's a maiden that has no eyes, or we could choose to become the eyes of the Shechina Kaviyachol, as if, which means that we're able to choose to see within it meaning, to see within it purpose, to recognize that if I'm experiencing you, and even though you're saying silly words to me, and it seems to be empty words, that's the way you're projecting it to me, but that's not the way I have to receive it. If I receive it, if I say the reason why these silly words were told to me is to teach me something about myself in this very present moment, maybe to teach me about my patience, maybe to teach me how I should interact with other people less condescendingly, or I should be less judgmental. If I take it as a teaching, and I take this as an experience as allowing me to grow into my next incarnation, to allow me to move forward in my life, then I will experience it and then move on from it. Otherwise, this experience will keep on happening over and over again in order for me to learn from the experience. So whether it's a person talking to you that seems to be saying things that are nonsensical and empty of all meaning, and milim rekanim, it's empty words, and milim deshtusim, it's actually silly words. This is true. From the perspective of the perpetuator of the one that emanated those words and gave and forwarded them to you, yes, from his perspective or her perspective, maybe it was something that was negative, or maybe something that was silly, something that was foolish, or something that was empty. But that's not that. But the way you receive it, that's your choice. You always have a choice to receive it, and the lesson that you have to learn from it, the recognition that Hashem is talking to us every single moment of our lives, every single time, every moment that we're awake, even in a sleeping state, but certainly when we're awake at a conscious level, Hashem is talking to us through the world that's being presented to us, through the people that are being presented to us. If we could recognize the Apei Shechina, we can recognize the face of the Shechina. We basically recognize the face of the Shechina in Reb Chia because he was teaching. He said, now this person was talking to me silly words, and now you're going to talk to me words of Eraisa, words of Torah. And now I see that your face, the face of the Shekhinah, because I see the light. I see the light that's shining from your face. I see the meaning that's shining, the purpose. You're going to speak words of meaning, words of holiness. And the Saba, the way the Zohar reframes this, the Saba, the old man, is teaching him that even as someone that you don't think has anything intentional or holy or noble to say, someone that you see just a passerby, someone just walking in the street and says, like, okay, what does this person have to tell me? This person is insignificant, or God forbid, or this person, I have no interactions with this person that's meaningful. The only person only tells me silly things and things that are empty. Says the Zohar that if you receive it that way, then it's empty, and then you're going to look to find Eraisa, you're going to look to find Torah only in a certain paradigm, things that seem to be spiritual. But the Torah says, and this is what the Torah is telling us, that right after Matan Torah, the high of Matan Torah, the high of the experience of that I am Hashem, that there's oneness of Hashem, is to be experienced within all of life, within every single experiences of life. And that's our choice. Our choice is whether we interact with those things in a healthy and a holy way. If we see the face of the Shekhinah within everything, we see the face of Hashem within every experience within this life, and we say, every single person that's telling me something is telling me something that I can grow and I can move forward and I can incarnate to a higher madrega, I can misgalgal, I can reach a higher place in my own spiritual life, and I can grow from this experience, then I'm taking these experiences that seem to be devoid of meaning and empty of meaning, and I'm choosing proactively choosing to be engaged with life from a proactive way and a way that's able to see and perceive Hashem's presence within every single experience in my life. And that is the spiritual work that we have to do, that we always have to be open to every experience. And the high of Matan Torah, the peak of Matan Torah, where we saw the oneness of Hashem, the way the Torah literally describes it immediately following, it's like those were given at Sinai. This is the highest level of the Eyeless Mishpatim. Rashi says it's a continuation of Sinai, a continuation of the experience of Sinai, seeing the presence of Hashem, the Pnei Shechina, the highest level of Pnei Shechina is lived in actual life, in the mundane life, and we can actually translate that experience of the oneness of Hashem to see it within every single experience, within every single person, with every single encounter that we have in this world, to see the Pnei Shechina. And then the Taya, and then this thing that seems to be outside and not a sage, and someone that seems to speak silly words, ends up talking the highest, deepest words to us, even though from them, maybe from their perspective and from their paradigm, it's coming from a place of negativity or emptiness. But to us, the way we receive it is that we're receiving it as a message, because every moment Hashem is talking to us and continues to talk to us. We just have to be open to experience that. Have a wonderful Lichtige Shabbos.